Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode of Fandom. Today, we're going to be talking about cosplay. Um, so, if you've ever, wondered how to get started, wondered even what it is, we'll touch a little bit on that. I personally have done several cosplays in the past, but my fellow co-host here hasn't. So
Nope.
she's I'm sure she's got many questions, and hopefully there'll be some of the questions that you have as well. So, to start off with, we're going to actually talk a little bit about what is cosplay. Um, so, it's basically the art of dressing up as a character from some sort of media. Um, and generally, it's done at comic conventions, comic expos, those sort of events. But you can really cosplay at any point in time. But generally speaking, people only consider it cosplay if it's at a convention. Um, so you probably um, sorry, my brain just my train of thought derailed there. But basically, yeah, cosplay is just a fun way to dress up. It's sort of like Halloween for a regular day. Yeah.
I like this version, this point of view.
And of course, it's important to note that cosplay is for everyone. So, you might not think that you could portray a character because you're a different race, or you might think because you're in a wheelchair, something like that might, you think that might prevent you from cosplay. But cosplay is really and truly for everybody. Um, and It's all about sort of your unique take on a character. Um, yeah, you don't have to do it exactly like the media, although some people are very strict of connecting it to the media. But yeah, you can do basically whatever creative spin you want. So, do you have any questions right now?
No, I
No.
mean, you explained it very, very well. Like, I had an idea in my mind, of course, and your explanation went perfectly according to my idea.
Great, glad to hear it. So next we're going to talk about how do you choose what character you're going to cosplay.
Yeah, that's
um
very interesting for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's sort of the first question that most people have is, how do I figure out what to do? Um, so the one of the first things that you want to figure out is what are you capable of making? Because a lot of cosplay is homemade. So it's like, do you have the skills to sew? Do you know how to work with Warbler? All those sorts of things. And if you don't have the ability, you can always buy a pre-made cosplay. um, but the thing to figure out there is, do I have the money to spend? Because obviously the better quality cosplay, the more ornate, the more detailed, it's going to cost more money. Um, so it's all about figuring out what can you either make or buy. And sometimes it's a little mix of the two. Sometimes you're going to sew some pieces and buy others. So it's all about figuring out the balance between the two and sort of adapting it to your budget and your abilities.
Mhm.
The next thing you want to think of is, are you going to be comfortable in this cosplay? Um, and this could be like comfortable with the amount of skin you're showing off, but it could also be how comfortable is the outfit itself, because some cosplays are very heavy, some are very form fitting, and will you be able to move easily? Will you be able to walk around the convention floor? Are your feet going to hurt? That's a huge one. Think about your shoes, because I did a cosplay once and I wore high heels, and that was like the biggest mistake of my life, because like I couldn't feel some of my toes by the time I was done. So that was a huge mistake. Next thing you should think about is, do you want to be recognized? Because some cosplays are obviously going to be very easily recognizable, like a Disney princess. And some cosplays are more niche and not everybody is going to recognize it. So it sort of depends on, do you want people coming up to you and taking pictures? Do you want people to say, hey, I know this character, you're X and then have a conversation about it. So it's all about like what level of engagement do you want to have with the other people at the convention. Next, obviously, this is a very important one, but do you like the character? Is this something that you're passionate about? Is it something that you're excited about? You know, you can cosplay a character just for the sake of being recognized, but if it's not going to give you joy to portray this character, what's the point? That's sort of my thought process is like if you don't
Mhm.
like the character, you know, maybe that's not the cosplay for you. An important thing to think about is if you're traveling to a convention, do you have the ability to pack your cosplay? Because some cosplays are obviously not going to fit in a suitcase or they're not going to fold. So this is something to keep in mind because you know you don't want a cosplay that has a lot of wrinkles in it, or if you don't have an iron, you know it's just so I don't think this is something that everybody thinks about. But yeah, if you're traveling, you want to make it easy for yourself.
I've never considered that. Like,
Yeah.
I've never considered that thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I've traveled
So
to a couple conventions and I always make sure that, you know, it's a lightweight costume that's not going to weigh down my luggage, things like that. Another important element is some conventions have dress codes. Um, so you know, maybe it's the amount of skin you're showing. Almost every convention will have a weapons rule, so you can't have like a real sword or something like that, and you'll have to get your weapon piece bonded. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next episode where we talk about uh, conventions and some of the um, more in-depth questions about that. But yeah,
mhm.
you have to consider whether the convention even allows some of the elements of your cosplay. And finally, it's important, very important, to think about racial sensitivity because if you're playing a character from a different race, usually that's considered okay as long as you're like not doing blackface, as long as you're not doing it in a disrespectful way. Um, so like one example that comes to my mind is Mulan, in the scene where she's um, doing the matchmaker makeup. uh, you know, you have to think about, am I comfortable portraying this um, you know, race? I generally think that people consider the makeup not to be racially insensitive, but you know, it's something to keep in mind because you do want to make sure that you're portraying characters in a respectful way, and you're not going to, um, you know, incite any kind of um, outrage, I guess.
Mhm.
So, do you have any questions about that element of it?
Okay, yes, I have a few. Like, do you prefer like being recognized as a character or dressing like someone who may not be recognized, but like something, I don't know, maybe at a convention, for example, there is more chances that a lot of people are gonna be dressed like I don't know, some character, and you are okay with that, or you personally, I mean, would you prefer to choose something that is not more recognizable, if it's
Generally,
clear?
for the most part, I do cosplays that aren't very immediately recognizable, a little more niche and
Mhm.
um, you know, less likely for somebody to recognize it. Um, but it really depends on my mood and the size of the
Mhm.
convention. Generally, for a smaller convention, I'd feel better with a cosplay that people recognize as opposed to at a really big one. You know, where there's, you know, a lot of people and you know, more people will come up to you and talk about it. So it's all very dependent on how I feel at any given moment.
Okay, that's a good answer. And I don't know, I guess that's it for this part. Uh, yes. Yeah. I believe
Okay,
that's
great.
that's it.
So the next we're going to talk about is some of the pros and cons of making your cosplay by hand as opposed to buying it from a store or an online site is generally the more likely way you're going to get it. Anyway,
Hmm.
so when you're making something by hand, like I've mentioned before, you have to, take into account your skill level. Um, I personally, I know how to sew. I'm fairly good at it, but I probably couldn't sew like Belle's ball gown. I probably couldn't sew that from hand. Um, but more simple things I have sewn. Like I did Once Upon a Time cosplay, and I actually sewed the jacket without a pattern. Um, so
Like Emma jacket,
yeah, not
you
the
did
red
it
leather one,
yourself.
not the red
Oh, okay.
leather jacket, but yeah, I did sew a jacket by hand. So it all
Whoa.
depends on what you feel comfortable doing and um, what you have the resources available to do. Like if you don't have a sewing machine, it's going to take you forever, so you're probably not going to choose to hand make something. um and like if you live in a big city, you might be able to find warbler at a craft store, but if you live in a small town, you might not be able to find it. So it all depends on what you have available to you.
Okay.
Another thing you want to think about is the cost, because fabric isn't cheap. It's, whether or not it works out to be cheaper to buy it or cheaper to make it, it really depends on what you're making. Um, so yeah, it's very, very dependent on how elaborate it is. And of course, you have to figure out how much time are you willing to put into making it? Because, again, the more ornate it is, the more time you're going to have to devote to it. Maybe you're putting jewels or sequins or something on a piece that's going to take you a long time. So, how much time do you have to devote to making this cosplay? And when you're buying something, um, obviously you want to think about where are you getting it from. Um, Probably there are some sites that are specifically devoted to buying cosplay pieces. Generally, some of them are specifically like pre-made stuff that you're getting from Asia, so it's not always the best quality.
Hmm.
And then you can go on sites like Etsy, where everything is made by hand, and it's going to generally be a better quality. So it's all about what quality are you looking for, and it's important that you read the site's reviews to make sure that you're getting something that's worth the money you're paying. And of course, you have to figure out what you're willing to spend. Like I said before, the more elaborate it is, the more ornate it is, the more it's going to cost. And if you're looking to, spend a lot, then yeah, go on Etsy and you're going to get something of really great quality. But if you, don't really care so much about the quality, then yeah, you can get something, from China that's, a little bit cheaper. And of course, it's important to look at how long in advance do you need to order it. If you when you know what day your convention is, um, so some sites, depending on whether they're pre-made or whether they're making it from scratch based on your measurements, um, it could take several weeks to make it, and then it's going to take time to ship it. So figure out how far in advance do you need to be doing this.
I
Any
guess
questions about?
probably. No,
Yeah,
sorry.
go
You
ahead.
finish?
No.
Okay. So I was also thinking, like, thinking myself doing that for the first time, actually.
Mhm.
I'd also guess another good point would be paying attention to the size. Also,
Mhm.
because, like, we have different size than like America or other places. So,
Yeah.
like, something you don't realize at the very first moment, like, you think about like, for example, I always wear an XL as a size for, I don't know, t-shirt, but when I was in the United States I was usually wearing an M as a size.
Mhm.
So maybe like considering like that for, to buy when you buy something, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you
Like,
want definitely want to pay attention to the country sizing. Like stuff made in Asia generally is cut smaller than it is in the States. So you definitely need to pay attention to things like that. Do you have any other
okay.
questions about that section?
I don't know, like maybe for example, if I print something like uh, if I'll ever make a cosplay, I guess my first one will be like Emily Prentice from Criminal Minds, of
Mhm.
course. And like, for example, if I print out the badge, her badge, working badge from for the FBI, is it considered handmade or not? Just randomly, it's something.
Generally, it wouldn't be considered handmade, um, but it all depends on, I guess, your own personal definition of handmade.
Yeah, yeah, that's also because I have no skills in doing like anything, drawing and stuff like that. So that's sorry for the silly question, but
That's okay.
it just popped up in my mind.
Alrighty. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about things that you should consider when you're doing a cosplay. So the first thing is, what are you wearing under the cosplay in terms of like underwear? Because some cosplays are very skin tight, some of them are very revealing, and so you got to think a little bit about what you're wearing underneath your cosplay. Um, for example, a lot of bras are really uncomfortable. You're going to want something that's comfortable if you're, around on the convention floor for, 6 hours of a day. So you're going to want to think about comfort. Um, a lot of people wear shapewear under their cosplays. Um, so that's something that you need to think about in advance. Definitely making sure that you're comfortable and it looks good and feels good. Another thing to think about is wigs. Wigs are like, it's a whole um it's a whole hassle sometimes to find a good wig. Like, good wigs
Hmm.
are very expensive. um and you know if you have long hair, figuring out how to wear the wig over your long hair, like, there's a lot of things that go into figuring out what wig and how to style a wig, how to care for a wig. This is something that we probably would have a special guest to talk to you about, because I'm personally not very well versed in wigs. I've done a couple of cosplays with wigs, but generally they're not like top quality wigs. So that's definitely something we will look into getting you an expert to tell you more about. Accessories is another thing to think about. Not every not every cosplay will have accessories like jewelry or gloves, hair barrettes, things like that. Um, but generally speaking, you might not be able to make all of these things. So some of these things you're going to have to purchase. So um, definitely think about that ahead of time. For example, I had a cosplay that had gloves, and I was like, "Oh, gloves are easy. I could totally make these." So I did attempt to make them, and it was a total disaster. So I just had to go online and buy some, and I was like, "Oh, I should have just like realized from the beginning that this was beyond my skill level." So it's something to think about. Do I have the skill to make these, or do I even want to try? Makeup. Some cosplays, for example, Mystique from X-Men, involve body paint. I personally have never done body paint, um, but that obviously takes a long time to do. And so you have to think about, um, how much time do I have to put on makeup? How much skill level do I have with makeup? Because, some cosplays you're going to want to, what's the word, contour your face to
Hmm.
make it look better or more realistic. And if you have a lot of tattoos, sometimes you're going to want to cover those up, and there's special products you can get to cover tattoos, or there's a way you can do it with like concealer and hairspray and stuff like that. I've done that before. Um, so it's all about, how much, how similar do I want to be to the character? Do I mind if I have tattoos that aren't on the character? Um, how much, do you want to risk getting makeup on your cosplay? Things like that are something to think about. And the final thing you want to think about is, do you need a handler? So, a handler, for those of you who don't know, is someone who basically holds all your stuff, holds your bags. They can help you repair your cosplay on the go if you need it. Um, Sometimes, if you have vision impairments in your cosplay, um, they help guide you around the convention floor. So they're really like your helper for the day. Um, so, do you need one? It all depends on how comfortable you are walking around in your cosplay. If you need, someone to guide you, if you need um, someone to sew things on the fly, um, and if you want someone carrying all your stuff. So, it all depends on whether you want one. And generally speaking, the etiquette when you have a handler is that you are their handler one day and they're your handler the other day. So it's generally considered good manners to return the favor.
Yeah, that's
Any
good.
questions about that section?
Um, okay, I have one. Like,
Yep.
when you mentioned about tattoos, for example, since I
Hmm.
have a few myself,
Yep.
like, can you make your pass me the term, a personal version of a character. For example, I wanna be dressed up like, I don't know, a Disney princess,
Hmm.
but I wanna make like, I don't know, like a goth version of a Disney princess or a super tattooed Disney princess.
Hmm.
Will that be considered okay? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really cool spin to do on a character. And I've seen like characters like that portrayed. Yeah, and you can draw on tattoos. You can get like tattoo sleeves. You can get temporary tattoos. It's definitely all fair game.
okay. And I kind of have a weird question, but I don't know if that's considered cosplay. For example, um, in my case, I'm a shipper, as
Mhm.
you may know.
Mhm.
And can you cosplay, if it's valid, like a original character? For example, I see very well, for example, you can cosplay like the imaginary daughter of Belle and the beast when is human, or is
Yeah,
not considered cosplay.
yeah, you can totally do that. Um,
Okay,
obviously, you'll have to expect that you'll have to explain your cosplay a little bit
of
more than you
course.
might have to. But yeah, that's totally something that you can do. I've thought about cosplaying an original character from the book that I've written, so I've thought about doing that. Um, but yeah, that's totally fair game as well.
Cool. And can you, last question,
Yeah.
can you make like an ironic version of a character? Well, that considered like disrespecting for real, like not like mocking someone in a bad way, like just a different question, different point of view. I don't know. There is a character I really like, but is very serious as a character. I'd like to portray him like in a funny version, like a super silly and whatever. Would that be okay, or is just disrespectful for like this show, book, whatever, or character fans?
You can totally do that. Um, yeah, you might get some questions, but definitely you can put whatever spin on a character you want. Like cosplay is totally about your interpretation, in my opinion.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, that's cool.
cool. Alrighty. So, in this next section, we're going to talk about tips and tricks, little things that you might want to know that you might not have thought of. So, first and foremost, if you're not comfortable being photographed, you, obviously you always have the freedom to say no, please don't take my photograph. But um, cosplay generally you're kind of anticipate being photographed. People might want to take a picture with you, or they just really like your cosplay and want to take a picture of it. And sometimes you're going to get media outlets at the convention. Like obviously, like a big convention, you're more likely to run into somebody from the media. But even at a small convention, like my town has a fairly small convention, but I was asked to record a little video segment for the news. Um, so if you're not comfortable with being photographed, maybe cosplay isn't for you. Obviously, you can if you want to, and you can ask not to be photographed. But think about what your comfort level is with this, because generally speaking, you will get your picture taken. Next thing you should think about is having a repair kit. It can be something really simple like just a needle and a thread, but you can also do more elaborate ones. Some cosplays you're going to need hot glue to repair. Um, some conventions will even have a little booth set up where they have things that you can use to repair your kit or your cosplay. But yeah, you should maybe think about having a little repair kit. Something good that to put in it is like a Tide to go pen, in case you spill coffee or something on your cosplay. But yeah, you should have a little kit with you to, fix up little things that snag or rip or fall off. Um, Something important to keep in mind is cosplays, what they call cosplay's golden rule. And that rule is cosplay is not consent. Um, a lot of really um, well-known cosplayers will do um, more revealing outfits. I generally find, um, and the more revealing outfit you have on, the more likely you are to get harassed. So it's important to remember that just because somebody's wearing a skimpy cosplay or a skin tight cosplay, it's not consent for you to harass them or to put your hands on them, or it's even you can't even take their picture without asking. So it's important to remember that rule. And generally speaking, if you are at a convention and you don't obey that rule, you will get kicked out. You will get banned from the convention. So
Whoa.
um, always keep that in mind. Something to consider when you want to cosplay is putting a unique spin on characters. We've talked about this a little bit, but you can sort of make a character your own. Like you'll see Disney princesses portrayed as pinups, you'll see them portrayed as zombies. You can really put any spin on a character you want. And it can be a really fun way to sort of mix things up if you don't want to be the same old Disney princess or the same old superhero. You can always, make it fun. Which brings us to our next point. Cosplay should be fun. If you're just cosplaying just because you think it's what's expected, like you think that you have to go in cosplay to a convention, that's not how it should be. You should be having fun. You should do cosplay because you want to do cosplay. And it shouldn't feel like work. It should be enjoyable. And speaking of cosplay as work, you can make a career out of cosplay. I personally don't know what goes into that, so this is something that we would definitely bring in a guest to talk to you about. But yeah, you can definitely make a career out of cosplay. And generally speaking, that's done through like contests. Um, when it comes to contests, your cosplay does have to be made by you. Um, but I don't really know much about cosplay contests because I've never entered one. But yeah, you can enter cosplays and in contests and um, win. I assume you win money. I don't really know, but yeah, so you can definitely like get do a lot of things with cosplay. There's a lot of options available to you. It's It can be just a hobby, it can be a career, it can be a little side gig to make money. There's all sorts of things that you can do with cosplay. Yeah, any questions about that?
Um, no, that's cool. Like,
Cool.
I don't know, maybe having a career as a cosplay, can it be considered like being uh, your character double? Double meaning like I don't know. There is this huge event. For example, I was dressed as a Disney princess, and I can use it to, I don't know, like make money. I don't know, like for example, private parties for, I don't know, girls or whatever. Is that considered still cosplaying? I don't know. I'm like, is it clear as a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Generally, that's not considered cosplay. Like you could use a cosplay to do that, but generally it's not considered to be part of cosplay.
Okay. Even if I was noticed while I was cosplaying someone.
Like if you were cosplaying at a convention and someone noticed you, like yeah, that's still cosplay.
Uh-huh.
But
But if I do it
yeah, like if you're
okay,
not at a convention, generally it's not.
okay, cool, nice.
Cool. And
I've learned a lot of things.
our final thing, we're going to play a little game.
Yeah, it's been
Okay,
a
so
while.
yeah. So each of us has listed five of our favorite fandoms, and the other person is going to try to guess which character from that media the person would most like to cosplay. So
Okay, who's going to start?
why don't you start guessing?
Okay.
Okay. So the first fandom is Criminal Minds.
Hmm, okay, so well, I'd say immediately Emily Prentice,
Yes.
but
Yes.
uh, is it correct, or are you
You're
gonna
right.
say it?
You're
Okay.
right.
No, I
That is
was
the one
just
I would go
thinking
with.
since. Okay, spoiler alert. But,
Spoiler
even
alert.
if it's not a spoiler, since you are blonde now, I was thinking that maybe you could have tried. I don't know, JJ, for example, but or maybe Alex Blake, of course.
Yeah.
But my first choice would have been Emily, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would go with first. But I think it's the one that you'd get the most recognition as.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next fandom is Once Upon a Time.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I know you dressed as Emma at least
Hmm.
once,
Yep.
but I don't know. I my gut says, oh my God, I can't remember the name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's not Regina Mills. Okay,
Yeah.
I have it.
Yes, you are
Regina.
correct.
Okay, whoa.
My dream is to do a an evil queen, like a really elaborate cosplay with like a gown and everything. That's what I want to do.
Cool.
Okay. My next fandom is Miraculous Ladybug.
uh, Marinette.
Yes.
Ladybug. Oh, well,
Yes.
meaning. Yay.
Okay, and my next fandom is Disney.
uh, well, I'd say, like, without any doubt, knowing you, Bella from Beauty
Yes.
and the Beast.
I'm very predictable like that. Yes.
Maybe I just know you. Who
Maybe
knows?
you just know me like really well. And my final fandom is X-Men.
This is the hardest. I've think about that for a while,
Hmm.
but I don't know who I could choose. Like, let me think for a second. I don't know because in my opinion, as like someone who has just a few, just saw a few pieces here and there of X-Men, I'd
Mhm.
say Wolverine just because it seems the easiest. But I have no idea who, or Professor X, but I have no idea who you could portray. Uh, Rogue, maybe. I don't know.
Shall I tell you?
Yeah.
I would do a Magneto gender bend.
Oh, okay. I've thought about it for a second, but let's say no, it's okay. I admit my my lack of knowledge about that. How about you
Okay,
on that?
now it's your
Okay,
turn.
cool. So I can take revenge. No, I'm kidding. So of course, the first one is Criminal Minds.
Now, I'm gonna blow everybody's mind and guess Emily Prentice.
No way. How did you get that?
I know, it's shocking.
Yeah. Then Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Okay. So there's two characters I'm torn between. One because I think you really embody them. Um, but I'm going to guess Hermione.
Uh, yeah, I liked her, but I wouldn't choose her as a cosplay. I'd go with Luna Lovegood.
That's what my other guess was.
I was sure that was the other one.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you totally embody her, so it would be
Yeah.
perfect.
I just need the rush up because we are. I'm as weird as her, so
Yeah, in a good way.
okay, thank you. I like the laughing part. So, um, so Disney.
Disney. Okay. I'm going to guess Ariel.
Yes, but that will be my very first choice. So you are right, but just an extra as a bonus, if you can consider that, I'd say Tinkerbell. If
Oh, good choice.
like if I'd go dressing like something like out of my comfort zone, if I can consider Ariel my comfort zone, I'd
Mhm.
say Tinkerbell. Yes.
Very cool.
Okay.
Okay.
And the very last one is Hunger Games.
Okay, I feel like this is a gimme, but it's probably gonna be Katniss.
Yeah. Yes, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think that is the end of our game.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So that was our cosplay episode of Fandom.